What's going on, guys? Sdotbell MMA here. Today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my MMA and my jiu-jitsu philosophy that has kind of driven me or pushed me to this point where I'm at right now. One of my goals in life and over the next, I want to say 10 years is to be a pro MMA fighter. My goal is to eventually make it to the UFC and to be a UFC champion. I'm still deciding at what weight. I'm going to see how my body feels once I've reached that kind of elite level of fitness. But these days I've suffered a few setbacks in terms of a couple of serious knee injuries that I had. A little over a year ago, I tore my ACL, my MCL, my meniscus in my left knee. I was recovering pretty well from that. And then this year, well, actually at the end of 2018, in December, I ended up partially tearing my LCL and my ACL in my right knee. So these days, I'm pretty much recovering from that. And so because of that, it's forced me to be in a position where I had to now focus on the mental aspect and the coaching aspect. Actually, the reasoning behind this video was yesterday I ended up filling in for one of our MMA coaches, and I had to coach MMA class. And because of that, I had to kind of throw a plan together. And that really forced me to look at how I view MMA, how I view my jiu-jitsu, how I view my training. Because for me, I'm a very analytical person. My mindset is very deep into the concepts that I'm digging into when it comes to my training. So when I see a technique, I'll break down the technique, at its core, at its essence, and want to figure out what's the reasoning. Why does this technique work? Why wouldn't it work? What could you use to counter that technique? And I always do that when it comes to my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, my MMA, as I've started to train my wrestling with the wrestling and things like that. And so first what I'll do is I'll give you guys kind of a base look at how I'll be building my MMA game and how I would teach that concept, which is essentially what I had to do yesterday. And also how I've built my jiu-jitsu to a game where it's very concept-based as opposed to technique-based. And now, again, there are techniques in there that I like to use that I enjoy, but I build it off of these basic concepts that help me to make sure I have a game where even if I'm injured for a while or I'm not as strong as I once was or not as flexible, that I can still hold my own because of the concepts that I'm following within my game. So I'll start with MMA. And with MMA, now, when you look at MMA, I think there's different types of fighters that you're going to see. And when I say different types, I don't necessarily mean in terms of the martial arts that they study, but I mean that their attitude or their philosophy towards the way they fight. There are a few people who have explicitly expressed these types of fighters, and I love the way it's been expressed. And so those are the guys that are fighters or brawlers. There are those that are the martial artists, and then there are those that are the athletes or the competitors. And I feel like those three adequately display the types of fighters you're going to see. And so you might find guys who just love to bang and brawl, and they're willing to get bloody and just push forward and things like that. Or you have guys who are the martial artists who study the art form, who see the beauty of it. And this can be in the side of the creativity of a fighter and things like that, and the way that they're able to kind of embody the essence of whatever it is that they're studying or what it is that they're doing. And you have those guys that train like they're professional athletes, and they're competitors. They like to win. They're very, maybe they come from another sport background and now they're applying that to MMA. And now for me, I'm definitely not a brawler or a fighter. And again, when you're not that type of person, it doesn't mean that you don't have heart or something like that, but it means that your idea of winning a match might not be that you're going to push forward and go out on your shield and things like that, because not everybody's going to think like that, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to give it your all. You're not going to push yourself. You're not going to, do things to the best of your ability. But what I will say is I'm very much a cross between a competitor / athlete and a martial artist. And for me, I started my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I came here to China, and I was very much had fallen in love with it the same way I fell in love with capoeira. So I started capoeira first, and many years before I did taekwondo. I was always in love with martial arts, but for me, a long time I was playing American football. And I was, I was shot put and discus thrower. At one point I thought I was going to be the next Michael Jordan. So I was always an athlete. I was playing sports growing up. That was always a big part of my life. So I know I was always a competitor, a very competitive guy. Just play Scrabble with me and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But for me, I know I'm very much a competitor. And then when I got to China, that was really where I had the chance to really explore my love for martial arts. And with that, it built this passion and that started to kind of build up inside of me. And that kind of boiled over when I had the first opportunity, literally on super short notice, 5 hours notice, I had the opportunity to take my first MMA fight. And they were just like, hey, dude, if you want to do it. That day I was like hungover, but I was like, it's in me. I wanted to try it to just see what it was like. It was at my weight. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I jumped into that. And, being at that time a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, studying a little capoeira. I had been studying capoeira for the better part of probably about 3.5 years at that point. I'm up to 5 years now. Well, yeah, 5 years. And, I just went in there with very little striking experience, a fresh blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I just did what I could, and I felt like I did really well for what little I knew at that point in time, and it got me really excited about the prospect of doing it again. But I wasn't sure at that time if I really wanted to do it. But again, this has forced me to really explore my mindset of, well, how do I get better at jiu-jitsu? How do I get better at boxing or my striking? Or how do I build on these concepts? And that was really like the catalyst for me to really start this journey to kind of really. This was when I really got into the time where I knew that I was very much a martial artist. And I feel like the biggest display of being a true martial artist is MMA. You get to, whatever arts you're studying, whatever skill sets you're putting together, you get to truly test that in a feat of athleticism, again, mental fortitude, and just pure skill set. And so that's when I really figured out that, yes, not only am I an athlete, but I'm also a martial artist. And so that's why I feel like I'm a cross between those two. Now with that, I had to really figure out how I was going to get myself better. Now that I knew that I wanted to at least try an MMA fight again, I felt like I didn't really have the time to prepare. 5 hours is never enough time to prepare for a fight. And I realize now that I'll never do that again, just prepare and take a fight on such super short notice. So I started to really pick up with boxing, kickboxing, recently started wrestling. And that really forced me to just see how I study martial arts. And, you don't think about how you study. A lot of times you just do something or you study it and you just, go along, you realize you get better. And for me, at this point, I really started to figure out how I learned concepts. And what I do is, one, I ask a lot of questions. And that allows me to then break it down in my head why is it that we do it this way? Right? What makes this way the most effective? Because for me, I'm going to take that and I'm going to build on it. So when it came to learning boxing techniques, why is it that we dip our shoulder this way? Why is it that we're throwing the punch this way? To get the most out of it. When I'm doing my kickboxing, and I realized this in my jiu-jitsu, I would ask a lot of questions of my coach, and it became the running joke. Everybody would look to me anytime the coach would say, "Do you have any questions?" Because I always had questions about how and why we're doing it this way. And I realized that going into my MMA was the same thing, because now you're putting all these martial arts together to make yourself a complete fighter. So you need to know, how is my jiu-jitsu going to fit in with my wrestling? How is my wrestling going to fit in with my striking? Or the types of striking that you're going to use. Are you going to be a Muay Thai fighter? Are you going to be a boxer? Are you going to be a kickboxer? What is it that is able to fit these all together? And with that, I always try to find the most effective way to do something and take as little damage as possible. And that's really the biggest concept for me as an MMA fighter, because a lot of guys are willing to trade. I'm not willing to trade. I feel like I'm too pretty to be in there trading back and forth with the guy. But one thing I will do is I will pick my opportunities, right? And so one of the reasons I bring this up is to kind of give you guys a kind of base of where my fight style is when you see some of my fight videos, which you guys can check out on my page. And I'll link you guys to some of that in the description, and throw some video links up there so you guys can see. But things like using your jab, right? This is a true like boxer mentality. It's like having a good jab, right? If someone doesn't respect your jab, they're gonna keep coming forward. They're gonna walk through, and they're gonna try to walk you down. And with that, a lot of guys, when they start to get walked down, what they start to do is they back up. And for me, I've realized that this is the best of all the fighters have great footwork. And so the number one base for me is not any particular martial art, but having good footwork. So if you're within a martial art that has really good footwork, really good timing, then you're on the right track. So whether that be, for a lot of people, it's wrestling. For a lot of people, it could be boxing. It could be martial arts where you work on your footwork, and it's of heavy importance, is going to give you an awesome base. Now from there, building a very good, strong jab is then, to me, the next most important thing. So even if you have a strong jab, even if somebody's a wrestler, if you can keep them at the end of your punches, it's going to be a lot harder for them to try to take you down. So now from there, as you've built your strong jab, your really good footwork, having a good front push or front side kick, I think is also a very important thing. And now with this is then where a wrestling base becomes very important, because you're less willing to kick if you fear getting taken down, right? But if you have a good, strong wrestling or grappling base, whether it be wrestling, judo, or something like that, where you know how to keep your balance, keep your posture, stay standing up, then from there, you can throw kicks without the fear of, well, this person's going to take me down and I'm not going to be able to get back up, right? So from there, you have a good jab, a good front push kick, teep, or front side kick. Then from there, you're able to keep the person at range. And this is coming from somebody who has decided that, one, I'm more of a counter striker. Even when I can be aggressive, when it's me kind of coming forward, it's out of forcing the person to make a decision, which you can see in some of my sparring videos. Is I want to force a reaction out of you, and then from there, I'm gonna counter that reaction. I'm gonna make you decide whether or not you want me to keep walking you down, or you're gonna try to punch me. And now from there, again, I can react or counter these things. So now once you're able to keep the person at range, if they then again come inside and they get past that range, these are where things like elbows and stuff like that come in. But then again, a really strong grappling wrestling base, right? Which meaning you're not afraid to go to the ground, or if they're trying to take it to the ground and you want to keep it standing, you're able to get right back up, defend the takedown, things like that. And now people talk about this as well. The strongest base to have in MMA is wrestling. And now part of that is, to me, because of the competitor aspect or being an athlete. A lot of wrestlers, college wrestling, high school wrestling backgrounds, the Olympic or world wrestling level. Again, these guys have a crazy work ethic. They're fantastic competitors, and they're very much the athlete side of it. For some of them, they're the athlete brawler. For some of them, they're the athlete martial artist. And the thing is, for a long time, wrestling wasn't thought of as a martial art, but it absolutely is. And the thing is, it's a true display of imposing your will on another. And it's about winning and staying on top and getting the position and just being relentless. And that's why you see so many wrestlers have so much success within MMA. So then, so now again, a good strikes to keep the person at range, good footwork, strong wrestling defense. And now from there, you start to get into ideas of, more fancy or a deeper dive into other martial arts. So again, like when it comes to, again, keeping at range, now you have your combinations, whether it be boxing or kickboxing or Muay Thai, right? Where you can now start to incorporate your elbows. You can start to incorporate your knees. You can start to, again, incorporate really deeper combinations. So for me, I would want to build if I was a coach building a fighter, it wouldn't even be that I'm going to start. I would build, again, his strong footwork and punching mechanics. And then from there, just the most simple would be, again, having a fantastic jab. And then after that jab's working, now we can start putting other punches behind that, the hooks, the uppercuts. And then if the person takes to kickboxing, and then again having a good teep, a good side kick, front side kick, a good roundhouse, then starts to come a little bit later, because again, now once they have these a good foundation for their standing, we're making sure that their takedown defense and or their takedowns are very, very strong. Because with this, you can also make sure you're walking. You can have a person who can use these strikes to set up and then get their takedowns if they have a strong wrestling or takedown base, whether it be judo or some other martial art. Now, once they get down to the ground, this is another thing. Now, wrestlers, what they're very good at is maintaining control and staying in a certain position. Now, from there, jiu-jitsu becomes very, very important. And not just jiu-jitsu. So I'll say jiu-jitsu, sambo, some form of grappling art where submissions are also involved. And now, one thing I feel like people tend to start to mess up, and I think wrestling does really well, but jiu-jitsu sometimes is not always as great at when it comes to MMA, is maintaining controlling positions. So you'll see really good wrestlers do a good job of getting out of positions like mount because they're so explosive, right? And, you know, good jiu-jitsu guys understand that the person's going to try to explode out, but wrestlers explode out because they're thinking of being pinned on their back, which is like the worst thing that can happen to you in a wrestling match because you're going to lose. One guy I'll mention for this is Ben Askren. His concepts behind riding positions, controlling positions in his MMA matches, in his wrestling matches, make those adjustments very, very powerful. And one guy who embodied that in one of his most recent fights was John Jones. It was the way he rode Alexander Gustafsson. He basically made him quit on the ground. Once he knew he couldn't get up, he accepted it. And that you could tell the fight was over from that point. And so the thing is learning not to just have side control, not to just have mount, but the concept of wrestling riding positions to where you have the person in a inferior position that they can't get out of. And then I think what starts to happen is, again, ground and pound opportunities start to come up. Submission opportunities present themselves much easier. And again, now you get into the concept of you have these bits of pieces of when you have a framework of how you want to build your skill set, then the techniques become very easy to fill in there, right? So it could be that you're teaching somebody 2 or 3 really solid techniques in each position, right? So again, where the jab's coming from, where your kicks are coming from, when you want to keep the person at distance. If you want to close the distance, how you can use those strikes to set that up. And then once you're down on the ground, even if you're on the bottom, again, one bottom positioning I really like in concept is the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu system, where it's either you're clinched in, right? From there, if the person's able to come out, you're controlling their arms to where they can't really hit you. From there, you want to get your knees inside so that you can start to kind of push them away, bridge up your hips. And then if you can get your feet on the hips, you can kick them out, get some distance, and then, you know, get yourself back up again if you don't want to be on the bottom. If you do want to be on the bottom, then you know you can set up your, again, whatever submission you want from that point. And again, I'm talking more concepts as opposed to specific techniques because, again, I'm somebody who's going to want to take as little damage as possible. And again, I'm going to be wanting to impose my will and not have them impose their will on me, obviously, which is the goal of MMA, right? And so these are just some, concept ideas for how I see MMA. And I think it's going to shape how I fight as I start to get healthier, because again, now I'm just studying fighting styles and seeing how I can now use my concepts to apply to my fighting style, how I can kind of pick and choose other concepts I see from other fighters and then start to fit the techniques within these concepts. Now, how does this apply when I train jiu-jitsu? And I realized this partly when I got my blue belt. My instructor first told me, it was like, because I was much bigger, I was a little bit over 230 pounds. Like right now I'm maybe about 206, and I actually gained a little bit of weight. I actually got down to about 185 pounds. So I was really lean, really in shape, got really ripped. And then my knee injury happened and I started to gain a little bit of weight back. But, you know, I'm working on getting that back down to get my body back to where I want it to be. And I realized that, one, you want to make sure again, you have a framework or concepts that you're using within your jiu-jitsu. And then what starts to happen is techniques kind of present themselves from that, right? So if, for example, you want to get a sweep, to get a proper sweep off, you want to make sure that the person, doesn't have the opportunity to post, right? Or they can't lift their leg up, right? So the thing is, when you start to learn how to block certain positions or get an arm in a certain way to where they can't post, then you're going to get that sweep, right? Or if a person is in the, top position, side control, you want to make sure you're not giving them an opportunity to clasp their hands or close their hands on you. And then that's going to give you an opportunity to get out, right? Where are they controlling you when they have you in side control? Is it in the top position? Then you don't want to be bridging. You want to be doing something where your arms are working more. If they're controlling your hips, now is where you can start to work the bridge and things like that. And so with these concepts, you guys will see it a lot, which is why, like a lot of times when you've watched some of my videos where I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I'm rolling, I'll end up in a lot of the same positions because I'm leading people down a path because I'm working within my concepts. And now I'll start to have more and more techniques that I start to, pull out of that. But, right, for me, my kind of flow of my jiu-jitsu is a lot of time I'm okay starting in the bottom position because, one, I'm working for a sweep. Working from that sweep, then my next goal is to make sure I gain superior position to where, one, I start to threaten submissions, right? So once I've got my sweep and I've passed the guard, I'm threatening submissions, right? So now, again, it doesn't mean your goal is to fully get the submission all the time, but once you threaten submissions, what starts to happen is people are forced to make decisions, and then they either make mistakes or they present you with another options to get into another position that you are still, again, superior position. And for me, this is how I use my framework for how I do things. And the thing is, when you're going against somebody who's much better, maybe they're not presenting you with as many options, right? But again, for me, going against somebody at my level or higher, it may not be starting in the bottom position. It may be gaining a position or top that superior position earlier, right? So I may cut out a step of my concept at that level because I understand that this person may be as dangerous, more dangerous than I am. So working on getting the top position. Now from there, making sure you're not leaving yourself out there in terms of your submission opportunities for them, and then passing, right? And so once you get to that passing position, my goal is then, again, threatening those submissions. And again, it's not like you're forcing or I need to do an arm bar. I want to do a baseball choke. I want to get the Bravo on this guy. But the thing is, there's always going to be an opportunity presented to you. And the thing is, you just have to decide what's within your wheelhouse once that position is presented. Because even when you're going against a black belt or a world champion, they are also presenting you with those opportunities. And again, threatening, making them make a decision, whether it be, creating the deception or setting up something that that you like. I think working within that concept makes you much more dangerous. And then again, the less you start to leave your options open, and the more, let me put that another way. The less you give them options and the more options you give yourself, the better you get as a jiu-jitsu player. And I realize that, which is why these days, like, even though I'm injured, I'm watching, a lot of technique videos, concept videos. I won't lose as much in terms of my skill set because it's more mental, and it's because something that I'm continuing to stay sharp in on the mental side. And then when the physical, it's like I'm not losing out on much because although, I know I'm a good athlete, I know I'm strong and all those things, that's not always what's going to take me through, right? It's going to be, having the mental concepts that drive my jiu-jitsu, the mental concepts that drive my MMA and all of that are going to, help me to keep pushing myself to another level, keep learning more, and keep adding more to my skill set. So this video ran a little long, but I'm glad I kind of got to give you guys a little look into my world. Yes, I love all the MMA drama and BJJ drama and all that stuff. That's all great and wonderful. I love talking about and having these awesome debates, but also I want to still give you guys more of what it looks like into the mind of Sdotbell when it comes to my martial arts and how I train and who I'm becoming as a fighter. Because don't get it twisted, I'm very much an MMA fighter. That's who I am. That's what I am. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm striving to do. But I'm still going to keep giving you guys awesome content, but I just have to just put this out here and see what you guys think. All right. So let me know, how do you train? What do you get out of your training and your jiu-jitsu or your boxing or your kickboxing, your Muay Thai, your wrestling? Tell me how you guys see it. And thank you guys again for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Probably going to break this into 2 videos because it's running a little long, but check it out. All right. It's your boy Sdotbell MMA, and I'm out. Peace.